Okay. Hi, Gaz. I am so glad to get to speak to you. Since we have been together, you have had a lot of life changes, but it's nice to have these
Yes.
conversations after having met one another in person. That always makes a big difference, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. My life has dramatically changed really since we were at Bloom Farm, which was an amazing time actually.
Shout out to
Yes.
Sam. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
bringing us together there. And I think so basically, Gaz, I'm gonna totally rewind, go back to the beginning. We'll come up to speed eventually, but I love, as you know, to always kind of start these podcast conversations with
Mm,
sort of the foundations, the beginnings of how people have evolved into, the paths that they have now chosen. And your story is so interesting, and I would love if you would just share with us sort of, a brief background onto like, how you grew up and what brought you
mm.
into this world of, I think, cooking and, then we'll get into the whole new lifestyle change down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah. Well, I'm firstly, people don't know me. My name's Gaz Oakley. I'm formerly a chef from Wales, which is a little country next door to England for those that don't know, but you all should know. Uh, I um I had a passion for sports and rugby mainly as a kid. That's what every kid in Wales does is play rugby. But when I realized I couldn't play professionally, my dreams of playing for Wales sort of faded at like the age of 13 or something like that. I decided to take up my next passion, which was cooking. And I'd always done it at home with my dad. And I was inspired by people like Marco Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay, who I watched on TV, and all I wanted to do was become a chef. So at 15, I got a part-time job at a local hotel restaurant. And then when I could leave school at 16, I went into it full time as a young chef, 80-hour weeks, learning my trade and trying to soak up as much knowledge from all the chefs around me. And it was a fun time. I mean, looking back now, just 16 years old is like it's such a young age, such a kid to be doing that. And my mum at the time, I remember saying, you know, I shouldn't do it. I should stay on in school and then go and be a chef, later on. And in hindsight, my mum was probably right because at that age, doing that amount of hours and how intense it is and how much pressure you feel on your shoulders, especially without any sort of real life experience, it was hard to deal with. So after a few years of working in the kitchens, I had to take a break from the industry. I basically got burnt out. That's how it was. It was not enough sleep, not eating properly, overworked, underpaid, tired, just not good. And
All the things.
yeah, I did learn a lot though, which was amazing. And I obviously still had a passion for cooking, but having taken some time out of the industry and just getting a normal sort of 9 to 5 job, after a few years, I got my buzz back for cooking again. I just started experimenting at home and started sharing my recipes on social media about just over 10 years ago. And to my surprise, it took off, and people from all around the world were following me. I reached 7,000 followers on Instagram, which at the time was loads. And I think nowadays everyone's got loads. It seems like everyone's a content creator actually, but at the time having 7,000 followers was like unbelievable. So I quit. I just quit my job, thinking I'd made it almost, and that started this whole new episode of my life where I was suddenly sort of more of a public person as this following grew and the sort of appetite for the content that I was making grew, and I got more comfortable on camera because I went over to YouTube eventually, having never been on camera before in my life. And fast forward 10 years, I've done 5 cookbooks, worked with some amazing people, and ended up on a little homestead back in Wales where it all started, not in the city, but in the country. And now I'm all about sort of a whole different sort of interest, which is trying to be self-sufficient, trying to know where my food is coming from, trying to live off the land, trying to find the sort of romanticize life in a way, and learn the old ways, from herbalism to foraging to preservation, cooking, and so much more. So that's a little bit about me, I guess.
Well, and I feel like, it's really interesting because it always feels like there are these moments where people's lives take pretty abrupt turns or these big changes happen. And I know for you that was during COVID.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear about, and just for context, like, because I think people who might be coming to you right now might be like, oh my God, this guy must have grown up with parents who were total hippies and like lived off the land his whole life, whatever. But like that is not the case. Like you
Mm,
were a young lad living in London, like, and it's so crazy, Gaz, because I started watching your videos when my husband Jamie and I were living in London to try and get him to eat more plant-based meals. And you cooked so well and did a great job, but it's just hysterical thinking of like the man I was watching,
yeah.
8 years ago to like the man I'm speaking to today.
Mm,
And I think a lot of times people can feel like change is really hard, almost impossible. But I think for you, you've evolved so much that I would just love to hear sort of how you hit a point during COVID where you were like, I'm ready for some like big changes and also found the strength to actually act upon them.
yeah. No, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, because um, having shared videos for the last 10 years on YouTube, I can look back and see a version of myself that I don't even recognize now. And I guess that would be the case for most of us if we had, like, content from over the years of our lives. But it looks so drastic that almost it could look inauthentic. And it's something that I've seen, unfortunately, with social media. I actually describe it nowadays as like having a 9 to 5 job and your boss critiquing you constantly. It could be really good, it could be really bad, but constantly, because I just have to open my comments and people are judging or commenting about my looks, about the way I talk, about what I'm doing. A lot of it good, some of it bad. And that is so unnatural, it's so weird. I don't think it's even normal for a human to be able to have all those interactions or have that kind of um, sort of constant judgment on themselves. But obviously, I put out my stuff. But something I do see a lot of the time is, wow, like this guy's changed completely. Look at the clothes he's wearing. What is this music he's using in his videos? Why is he now, gallivanting around in a woodland? Like, it's so different. How I sort of answer that now, I think, is, after reflecting on it, is I feel now more than ever that I'm just living my true self, and that version of me in my early 20s, in my late teens, the version that people watch in my early videos, was me sort of blowing in the wind, not knowing my true identity, because what I felt like I was experiencing, having lived in cities and worked in cities for the majority of my life during those times, was something what I describe as a nature deficiency. I think many of us all around the world are deficient of nature, and nature is so important to humans. And for so long, I thought I was separate from it, or thought that it was separate from me. And because of that deficiency, I would chase after materialistic things. You would see me wearing the logos on the top, and or going to the gym and lifting weights all the time to try and find some purpose, or just following the latest trends and not feeling maybe that grounded. So the version that people see historically is that person that really wasn't just comfortable in their skin, wasn't grounded, wasn't connected. And since COVID, when I had this realization that I didn't know where my food was coming from, I felt claustrophobic living in London, and having this realization that I'd never really just touched the earth properly, I decided to leave London and move out to the country just to be able to try and grow some food. I didn't know where it would take me. I'd never grown anything in my life. And 5 years on now, as I said, I feel like I found myself through being surrounded by nature. So everything's changed, from the clothes I wear to the music I listen to um, the everyday conveniences that I once thought were normal. Now, I wouldn't have in my environment, let alone in my house. So it's been a huge change, and I understand when I see comments on social media saying, "What is this guy is just completely changed? This can't be authentic. He's wearing a cowboy hat in the garden." But I don't know. I just guess I
But I find that very interesting when people make comments like that. And I don't want to say that they're mean-spirited, although they might be. Like, but it goes to show that I do feel like if you had evolved the other way, the judgment would almost be kind of less because people would understand it more. Like it feels like, you know, we have come to create a society that I am hopeful is starting to fray a little bit, where the expectations are that we all sort of act the same way, do the same
yeah
thing, wear the same thing. Like that is very much the expectation. And the measurements of success are pretty like, get a good job, make a decent amount of money, buy a certain house, have a certain number of children, and live a
yes.
lifestyle like this. And as people start to question these things and create lives for themselves that might look different or have different kinds of meaning, with that comes some like healthy skepticism. But I think explaining it to people in a way that's like really beautiful and moving and authentic, which you do, is more important than ever because it shows people there is a way that is different that you can create all yourself.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, and I think everyone's at different stages and journeys of their lives. And maybe if I was a viewer of my content and saw the change, many years ago, and wasn't in my headspace, I would think, wow, God, he's become a right hippie. I probably would have thought that looking at my content now years ago. And I was very much influenced by the latest thing, the trends, all this stuff. And because you're taught that stuff gives you purpose and value, and it impresses people. But there was something missing from inside with me, really. And I filled that hole now that I've learnt so many things being in nature. Like, it's weird that I walked past weeds, or what I now call, they're not weeds to me anymore. They're like real plants with so much wisdom. I used to walk past them all my life and not bat an eyelid. But now those same plants that I interact with on a daily basis actually have taught me so much about the people before me who lived in these lands, and now that's grounding me and helping me find my feet. And without that grounding, you do feel a little lost. Certainly I did. So everyone's at their own place in life, and as much as putting myself out there opens me up to potential criticism and comments, I feel like I have an important message to share nowadays, more so than ever before. So I am still determined to share it, and I hope it gets through to the people. And whether they don't agree with it right now, maybe they will in a few years' time. So,
I think it's getting through. And I think like
mm,
if you were going to very succinctly say what that message is, Gaz, that you're trying to get across, like would you be able to like put it in a small term, or is it really big what you're trying to do?
um, I think that what I've realized, what I try and do is speak to my 20-year-old self that was so disconnected and had stress, had anxiety, had depression at times, was spending all my paycheck on things that, now I don't even care about or don't give me any meaning. It didn't give me really that much um, satisfaction, really. I think that when humans, when the industrialization came in, humans were forced to leave the country and kind of disconnect from nature and move to cities. When we did that, we stopped living by the rules of nature. And when you don't live by the rules of nature, you end up sort of treating your environment and the world around you with impunity and destroying it. So nowadays, what I'm trying to do is treat the environment around me with respect and as best as I can. And we're all hypocrites, but I try and do my best. And that's the message that I want to share. A big learning curve came from when I first started making compost in my garden. I would pile up all the organic matter in my compost bay, sorry, and I would put any organic matter, any kitchen scraps on this pile, and it would break down and create soil that I could grow more food in. And that cycle was so pure and beautiful that it made me realize and question everything that I use in my day-to-day life. So, that plastic bottle that, I'd buy to have a quick bit of hydration in the day, nowadays, I don't want that, because if that was to land in my compost heap, it'll never break down. If the polyester clothing that I once used to wear to go to the gym, that would never break down in my compost pile. So all of the conveniences, all of the things that I once used, the compost pile made me sort of resist a lot of them nowadays. And another message that I'm trying to get out there is we can take a lot of wisdom and knowledge from the people before us. So I'm trying to do my best to find those missing links, whether it be the medicinal or wild plants around me, whether it's learning how to make willow baskets from willow, because plastic was only sort of came into was popular since the 1960s. What did we do before that? So I'm trying to learn things like that. It's learning that I don't need to import nuts from the other side of the world. I can go and forage hazelnuts from hazelnut trees or plant walnut trees in the garden. And I guess on the topic of food, it's my new sort of thing is I really want to do my bit to try and deindustrialize my food, so that I know where it's all come from. I want to have my hands in everything that I eat, and I'm not there whatsoever right now. There's many things that I'm doing well. There's many things that I'm not doing right. But that would be the ultimate goal, is to deindustrialize my food and encourage the people that follow me that it's not right to eat strawberries in the middle of winter in plastic packaging sprayed with pesticides. So these are all the messages that I want to share, and hopefully it helps people.
Well, I think, and I just 100% can say that I find your content incredibly digestible and meaningful, and
Thank you.
has inspired me so much, because as you know, Jamie and I moved to the coast of Maine not that long after you moved to Wales. So we've kind of gone through a similar process. And I'm wondering if, like, I think you and we went down the same rabbit hole where, like, it almost takes just like one thing to get you started. And as you start to like dig under the surface, you start to realize all of these issues. And I loved your compost bin analogy, but I think for some people that are maybe like, why are you questioning everything, right? Like I see a lot of comments that are like, oh, everything's toxic, so I might as well just stop breathing. And I understand 100% people's frustration and why they would say that, because I have been through that process myself over the last 3 years of being like, oh my God, okay, this is bad. This is bad. This is, and it can feel so overwhelming, especially when you look around and you're like, oh my God, I need to get rid of everything from like my skincare to my household products to, my food. It can feel really overwhelming. And I'd love to hear how you I love how you do this, because it feels like you approach things with like excitement and curiosity about alternatives, rather than all this like doom and gloom of just like, well, I should pretty much just stop breathing because everything's
Well, I do
toxic.
have those thoughts occasionally. I think my fiance Tiegan's so good at sort of helping me not get overwhelmed by, the thing is, as humans, all we have this insatiable appetite for information. We just want to get information. We want to learn about everything. But a lot of the time, having all this information doesn't help that much. We it sort of pulls you off your purpose, and that's what I found myself getting into with technology, social media, these videos, books. There's so much information out there that sometimes you just get overwhelmed, and I have been overwhelmed at certain points, and trying my best to just well, Tiegan's trying to help me, just like just try to fight the battles that you can control. But I do get really, there's so much to be negative about to be negative about or be worried about in the world. But I actually just get really excited about finding the alternatives, like you say, learning about the older ways and how we used to do it, and just trying to implement that into this modern world. Because I honestly, I don't necessarily like the modern world. I go to cities nowadays, even though I lived in cities all my life and lived in London up until 28. I don't like going there anymore. I look around, I feel quite sad, and I couldn't put my finger on it for a while, and then I realized that actually the reason why I feel sad is because of that analogy I used earlier about how we don't live by the laws of nature now. So when we go to cities, it's just like, there's nothing that looks like true beauty of nature. And when humans feel good around natural things, whether it be the open fire, the sound of the water, the trees, the birds singing, the colors, that's what makes us feel good. So I feel really sad when I go to cities now. But what I'm trying to do is just bring show the beauty of the natural stuff, and hopefully that will inspire.
And I feel
And
like also it's interesting because, like, oh my God, I'm so desperate to introduce you to my friend Molly, who you would love. But she's out in LA, and she runs a sustainable landscaping studio called Orca. And
okay.
they do all nature-based, earth-based landscaping. And
Mm,
we had this beautiful podcast conversation after the fires about, you know, she was like, what I don't want is everyone in LA who, lost their homes or parts of their landscapes to the fires to rebuild out of fear of nature. Because she was like, I think there's this knee-jerk reaction to just like make everything concrete so nothing can ever
yeah,
burn again, right? And
yeah,
she's asking people to lean into like how we can work nature into cities, and actually using like plants that are really effective at storing water, or there's all these beautiful ways to do it. And I think the message is whether you're in the city or whether you're in the country, realizing the importance of like natural, organic feeling things is so important. And I think there's a growing movement towards that too. Like it even feels like design trends are starting to pick up on that a little bit. Like this idea that we want to live in places that are warm and filled with natural light and
mm,
plants and greenery. Like, do you feel like there's any movement towards those kind of like like I like to think we're getting better at
yeah,
realizing that we need this as humans.
yeah. I like to think so. I think there's always like that pendulum swift switch. It was like we almost got so industrialized and modern, and sort of the opposite of natural materials. And it seems now it's bubbling that there's more of a call for it. And yeah, that would be my dream. Like I look back at old photos just from like 100 years ago of the local town near my house, and not seeing a single bit of plastic. It's just like it just makes me feel happy. And the craftsmanship was so much stronger because you worked with natural materials. It looks so nice and charming. Everything's mass produced and industrialized nowadays, and it doesn't fill me with joy when I see this kind of stuff. Um, in terms of the natural building thing, that is something that has really sparked my interest, because when you go down these rabbit holes, unfortunately you find that even the homes that we live in nowadays, the modern buildings, the modern furnitures, all of them, have unfortunately toxic, harsh chemicals within inside them, whether it be building materials or your sofa or your mattress. Like all this stuff is not it's not great. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but there are alternatives now. And I think I've been, fortunate enough to even question this stuff and to be able to even think about this stuff, because when I was back in the kitchens working 80-hour weeks, I didn't have time to think of anything like this. And certainly I know that that's the case for many people that are caught up in the rat race. But to have the privilege to be able to think about these things is one that I definitely am grateful for. And it's made me realize that in the future, my dream is to have a decent amount of land that my family and I can live on, and we will build a natural home. And it's using sort of almost primitive techniques, a tradition called building with cob, which is clay, sand, and straw, to build really thick, sturdy walls that are fireproof, that are earthquake resistant. And there's many examples of this traditional building technique still being used today. And if you go to like Devon and Cornwall in the UK and West Wales, there's the buildings made from cob still standing today. They can last for thousands of years if looked after. And there's skyscrapers in Yemen made from a similar material. In fact, it was a universal language. We built with the earth beneath our feet. Wherever you were in the world, we all use a very similar technique to build our homes. I look back at ancient homes in Wales, and then when I was in Mexico, I looked at an ancient Mayan home, and they looked pretty much like for like, with thatched roofs and thick earth walls. And my goal is to create a modern version of an earth home in the future. And I'm not expecting everyone to be able to go out and do that. But if I can share my story of how we've done it, share the cost saving of doing it, actually, because when you're building with materials that are beneath your feet and you're doing it yourself, you're not having to get into any mortgage debt. You can use reclaimed materials to save costs. And at the end of the day, I really just want to enjoy and be present with my family, be in the garden. And to do that, I need to step away from the modern systems of mortgages and bills and all this stuff. So it just makes sense for me now to try and build my own home as cheaply as possible, using ancient techniques, and document the process through the platform that I have.
And I think I really do believe, not everyone's going to go out and build their own earthen home, but I do really, but like this is I think this is like this nuance is lost in a lot of people that like follow, I'm using air quotes, influencers. It's like, you're not, like someone like you is not out there telling everyone to go build an earthen home. Like you are not literally saying, because I'm doing it, you should do it. It's about like showing people what's possible and maybe encouraging them to think like, what can you do with your own resources?
Yes.
That just will make life a little bit easier, less toxic, more enjoyable. Like, I think we lose that nuance on Instagram, and people just automatically can kind of get upset or like really, just pissed that they're maybe like unable to do it themselves, or that you're putting up something that feels so out of reach for people.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to just say like, we should be encouraging people to live their wildest dreams,
Yes.
and just taking lessons from that, not trying to emulate it perfectly or doing the same thing, but just being like, wow, if Gaz did that, like maybe I could do this. It's really more about this, like, I like to think that is what like influence could mean, is just what is
Aspiration.
possible. Yeah.
It's something I think about all the time. And what I'm annoyed at myself about is, I moved out to the country to try and grow some food, because I didn't want to be reliant on the systems around me. But now it looks like you can only grow food if you leave the city, but really I could have grown a ton of food on my small balcony in London. And maybe if I started growing there, it would have encouraged loads of other people to start growing food, even on their windowsill or in front of a sort of sunny window inside their house. So, you know, I think a lot of the time, and this is certainly for myself, we make excuses, and there's we can always do a little something. Netflix, delivery of food delivery services, they are booming because we're spending money, we're spending our time with them. We've outsourced all our entertainment. We hardly even cook for ourselves anymore because we're buying in food. And I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes like it's so easy just to open my phone and flick through reels when I could be out in the garden sowing more seeds. And I put things off, and I always think there's always something that we can do. Maybe we don't watch Netflix, we read a book, or we don't watch Netflix, we watch a video on how to grow herbs on your windowsill. Like there's always something that we can try and do to elevate our lifestyle, and make it better. And when I lived in cities and had this nature deficiency, even though I wasn't even aware of having it, there was things I could have done living in cities. I could have gone to my local park. I could have learned what the plants were around in that park. I could have gone for a woodland walk in many of the woodlands that are in London. I could have gone to the farmer's market and chose to build a relationship with the farmer, and get organic food. But I was just so consumed by living in cities and the rat race and the pace of it that you're often caught in an entrapment, and it's hard to break free. It really is. And it took me up until now to break free. Even in the first year of living out here, I was still tapped into the city. I was still quite materialistic. I still, just was kind of just like a city boy living out in the country, and not really that integrated. But over time, reconnecting, I've slowly sort of evolved in what I feel now is my true self, and one that I probably could have found a lot earlier on in life if I had the access to nature. And it was there. I just didn't scope it out. I didn't think to scope it out because I thought I was separate from it.
Yeah, but don't you think, like, I've been thinking about this so much with Rev, is like when you keep using the word materialistic in like the pejorative sense, which I think we have all come to be like, being materialistic can be a little bit bad. But like what I find so fascinating about looking at like your beautiful, very natural home behind you, or your produce that you put out on Instagram or whatever, it's like you actually are producing a lot. You have a lot of material.
Yeah,
It's just
true.
natural and beautiful and sustainable. Like I feel like oftentimes within like the sustainability or self-sufficiency or green, whatever movement you want to call it, the hippie movement, whatever people are like thinking in their minds, it's very much this like you have to give up something. You have to give up Netflix. You have to do without in order to be better
Mm.
or to live a better life. And I think like actually what's amazing about you guys is like I would reframe that to be like you're living a life of abundance.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Like you're actually like I don't feel like you've sacrificed that much. I feel like you've actually just built up, like you still have things, just now they're like maybe cucumbers you grew yourself,
Yeah.
or a willow basket you made yourself, or you know what I mean? Like I really feel it's so important to sometimes stop and be like, you don't have to think about everything being taken away
Mm.
in order to be living a really good, sustainable, clean, healthy lifestyle. Just think about building up the good stuff, being
Yes, yes.
materialistic about the good stuff.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I think when I think of being materialistic, it was like my obsession with getting the latest trainer sneakers or clothes to wear in my new video or out and about in London. So I would, I don't know, be looked at in a certain way. And that's to my in my eyes now, that's like that's not cool. I think that, and I sometimes think about maybe some of the comments I used to get on my social media back in the day and think, oh, actually, I kind of agree with some of those negative ones now. Because, yeah, I was wearing like a very flamboyant top and my haircut was done every week. It was like, it
You
was
look
very
fabulous. It was just so
I don't know about
different.
that. It was very, it was, I don't know the words to describe it, but nowadays, you're right. It's true richness is going out into the garden and picking my dinner. And true richness for me going forward is to live as simply as possible, because I've noticed that living as simply as possible is the path to completeness and self-awareness. So I'm on that mission, and I have just had a baby, and my fiance Tiegan is just in the other room there. And if I was on my own, and now I think I would sell this property and just buy some farmland and just live in a hut, a very primitive shelter, and build it up from the ground. But I'm now thinking for my daughter and Tiegan more so, and Tegan's very much on board with everything that I'm saying, but there's certain comforts that we need. I think, and I don't even know if I'd survive if I just move into the hut. I'd probably think this is great for a week, then a cold winter would come, and I'd probably rethink it. But I don't know. Like all I want is the most simplest of things, and it doesn't look like it when you see the fancy house behind me. And in hindsight, I wouldn't be here. I would be in a tiny home with a load of land that I could utilize to be totally off grid. That would supply all of my needs. I could use the property to host retreats, build a community, rewild the land, and put a positive stamp on that area. So I'm just trying to live as simply as possible. And I think even all those things is materialistic, I guess we could say, but I'm just trying to shun the things that nowadays we think are valuable, when actually that this here is valuable to me. The time to be able to build this, the time to forage the willow, the time to learn it is all I want. And to be present for my family and pass on this knowledge that I'm learning to my daughter as well. That's all that I want in life. And it may not seem that watching my videos and being on social media, which even is a contradiction in my head. Like I don't know where that side of me, the social media side, will be in a few years' time, because I kind of want to just be out there. I don't want to be on here.
Yeah.
I don't mind talking to you, but just in terms of the job of creating content is an actual job that pulls me away from the things that I really want to do. So I'm going to have to reevaluate all that stuff in the future. And it's a journey that I'm excited to go through and learn and
And I
share
think,
potentially.
well, and I think you should share it. And I think that, community is it's something I've been thinking about so much. So, as I told you, we're flying to Miami tomorrow, and why we're doing that is I'm interviewing Dan Buettner of Blue Zones down there, which I'm really excited about. And I was refamiliarizing myself with on Netflix watching the Blue Zones program last night, which now I'm like, oh my God, I feel guilty about. But I was watching something educational.
No, Netflix is no. That's the thing. It's like you've chosen to watch something educational.
Yeah,
Our time is valuable. Let's not watch the reality stuff, and let's watch the educational stuff.
100%. Like watching the Blue Zones thing, I can guarantee everyone will feel very good and inspired after. But it's so interesting because in all of the different blue zones that Dan has traveled to, whilst the things, and we need to touch upon this before we stop, like things like everyone gardens, everyone eats a
Yeah,
predominantly plant-based diet. Everyone is drinking herbal teas, and
Mhm.
actually everyone's drinking wine, which I found really fascinating. It's just homemade, totally natural wine. And what's interesting about that is it leads really well into what I was thinking about, which is everyone has community.
Yeah,
Like and when we say community, it is offline, true connections, people that have dinner together or
yeah,
groups or breakfast or things like that. And that's where I'm really interested in. And I think people like you and me are thinking about this a lot. We run businesses online, and I'm grateful to the internet for giving me a platform to reach as many people as
yeah,
possible. But I genuinely like, when you and I were at Bloom Farm together with just a handful of people, and we could sit in the sauna and have tea
yeah,
together and like tea together. There is nothing that replaces that feeling of like
no,
being with someone. And
yes.
I don't know how we encourage people from the platform of the internet to really encourage people to build community. And like if you're thinking about that at all.
Oh, 100%. And actually, when we were at Bloom Farm and having dinners around the table, it was really beautiful. And hearing Sam, if anyone doesn't know Bloom Farm, check it out.
I'll link Sam's podcast
Yes,
to
yeah.
your podcast.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, you can learn all about it. But we had an amazing time then. And what I loved actually was I'm really getting into the history of things nowadays. So I want to know all about the building, the farmhouse, what it was used for, who lived there and whatnot. And, there's a mill on site, or an old mill, and that would have been where everyone in the community would have ventured to have their grain milled, to pick up their flour, and that would have been like a communal spot where people would have got together. And that's what I find. At first, I thought, oh, great, I'm not going to have many neighbors when I moved out to the country, countryside. But actually, nowadays, I feel sad that the countryside isn't bustling as it was. So, you know, just round by me, there is like in very short distances, there's many churches. And I think to myself, there's like two churches in a space of 2 miles. There's not enough people to even attend, and certainly there isn't nowadays. But then I remembered that before the industrialization of the world and farming, the farms all around me would have been farmed by hundreds of people. This would have been a bustling place where, you would have got together for meals. You would have talked to your neighbor and bartered and traded, or lent each other favors. And that is where you can really see where these blue zones areas are. They do have that strong tie to community, and something that I've been lacking. It's all very well and good having a few million people following on social media, but if you're not interacting with like-minded people on a daily basis or a weekly basis, it's not that good. So I think that's something really important for us when we get our future land. When I moved out to the country from London, I thought I was moving onto a big farm, but actually, because I wasn't used to what land was, but actually I've just got a reasonably sized garden. By American standards, it's tiny, but also it's on a hill, so it makes growing food really awkward. But it's been a good place to learn. But when we get our future land, I want it to be a place where people are visiting very often, whether that's the local farmers, the local neighbors, or teaching children how to grow, having retreats, having people that watch me on social media come by to physically learn how to grow in person. That would be a dream. I like the idea of how the countryside would have been with all these people and trying to recreate that. Thankfully, being on this journey over the last few years, I've attracted like-minded people. So I have friends locally that, I can meet up with and go and support in a local bakery that's in the nearby town. And something that, just having a baby, we're adding to the burden of stress at the minute. Tegan and I are actually opening a little shop in our local town,
Oh my
which is
God.
called Abergavenny. It's a really small market town, historic market town, quite a foodie town actually. Once a year they have a food festival, and this is the first time where I've put it out anywhere on social or on anywhere. So I don't
Uh,
know when this podcast is
World
coming out, but
exclusive.
yeah. So, oh God, I kind of, in a way, regret saying yes to the lease now because it was pre the birth of the baby, and it
No,
just
you guys
feels.
have to.
I
I'm
know
so
we're definitely no,
excited.
we're definitely doing it, but it's too late to pull out now. But it just seems so overwhelming. So I hope that people are kind to us when we first open. If there's like hardly anything on the shelves, it's because we've been so stressed with everything. But my dad's there currently, fitting the shelving and the tables and making it all look nice. It's a really old shop that has been run for it's been used for like the last 300 years in on the high street. I see nowadays high streets all up and down the UK, like just unfortunately just dying a death really, thanks to online shopping and big business and rates being so expensive and people feeling like they can't open a business because I think when that entrepreneurship is just beaten out of us, or that creativeness is beaten out of us nowadays in society through schooling and everything else. It just seems so hard to want to open your own business. So I see how many of the shops on the high street are now big chains, and unfortunately just nothing that's joyful. There's a few independent places that I love in the town, and we wanted to do our bit, so we've decided to take over this shop, which is stressful, and it's something Tegan and I have never done before. But we hope, to answer the question, to caveat, this will bring an opportunity to bring people to see us before
Yeah.
we've got the land, before we got the farm to welcome people. We got this little spot. It's a small shop where we'll be selling locally made artisan crafts, from beautiful ceramics to willow baskets to candles to art to local produce from our garden and local farms. And I'll host little workshops there, from fermentation to kombucha to cider making, all kinds of things, foraging walks we'll do from there. So I'm not expecting people from all around the world to flock there,
Oh,
but
I'm
if it,
coming. Are you kidding me?
well, yeah, if it helps bring more people to my beautiful country of Wales, where the shop is located, is on the outskirts of uh, a mountainous sort of region called the Brecon Beacons, where you can come and stay for the weekend, visit our shop, go and hike up the mountains. It's very beautiful, and we're a small country, so if I can help bring people here, that would be great, and build that community from there would be amazing. I'll be stocking books that have changed my life and helped me articulate many of the thoughts and feelings that I've been having since moving to the countryside. And hopefully it'll be a nice place. And if it all goes wrong, and if we don't sell anything and it all goes wrong, I can just use it as an office space. I don't know. I'm
No,
scared, but
I think it's going to be amazing. And this is exactly, like this is not the answer I was expecting you to give me when I asked you about community, but this is so wonderful to hear, guys, like young people deciding to open independent stores,
mm,
to invite people in. This really, and I feel the same way about high streets. And, we have things like that here in America, obviously, just like rows and rows and rows of strip malls that just feel like dilapidated
yeah,
and so uninviting.
mm,
And if I'm going to purchase something or spend my money, I really want to be supporting small, independent,
mm,
family-run businesses. And I feel
mm,
really blessed to live in a part of Maine where we have a lot of businesses like that, but
mm.
it needs to be happening on a bigger scale all around the world. And I'm so excited that you and Tegan have decided to do this. Are you gonna
Oh,
sell produce? Are you gonna like also do
yeah.
like veg?
Yeah, so if we have any excess produce from the garden, then they'll be at the shop. There's also an amazing organic farm around the corner from the shop that will be supplying stuff year round. Because, you know, as I said, I've only got a small garden. When we have that farm in the future that I've been hinting to, we will obviously that would be great then to get produce from there and put it in the shop. I'll be making preserves and ferments and, you know, all kinds of salt blends and tea blends. We're really into herbalism and things like that, Tiegan as well. So we'll be making like skincare stuff and teas, and I'm excited for it. It feels really overwhelming, especially with the baby. Like it's a real, you know, Tiegan more so. It's just, she's so in demand. And I have so much respect for women and mothers now, more so than ever before after bringing Willow into the world, our baby girl. But, you know, I think I lived in this area for many years and there was never a shop available to take over. And it just so happened that we got the keys just before the baby was born a few months ago, and we're doing it now. So it's happening.
I can't wait. So do you have any kind of like time frame of when it's because like now everyone is going to listen to this and be
Yeah.
like, when can I come?
Oh, that's so good to know. I'm hoping that
They
it
will.
sort of generates that response. We will be opening penciled in for the end of February.
Oh, so
Where,
soon.
yeah, well, we've had the keys for ages now, far too long. I've wasted so much money just on rent of just a shop, but we couldn't physically find any brain cells spare to think about the shop when we've got this when they got the newborn. So, you know, and again, this isn't like something, you know, it's feeding into the whole capitalism thing that I'm trying to escape, really. We're buying things or we're making things to sell. And that is something that I want to try and avoid in life. But
But
this
also
whole
you've got to
project of the
eat.
shop, well, yes, but I mean, this whole project of the shop isn't to make money. We're not doing it to make money. Really, that's never ever been a thought process for my content in a way. It's always been a passion that thankfully has generated income. You know, I hope that we can pay people. We will be able to sort of champion local producers, which we will. So that would be a goal and a tick in the box and a reason why we want to open the shop. Another reason would be the fact that, as I said, there's not many independents left on the high street. There's loads of like mobile phone shops and just, you know, shops that don't really benefit the sort of harmony of the planet. There'll be no plastic in sight in our shop. And forever people have asked me where I get my homeware, my garden stuff from, my clothes, my, you know, all stuff like that will be stocked. So I'm hoping it adds some joy to the high street. We will
I'm,
see.
I'm so excited. I think it's so needed in the world right now.
Um,
Small stores like this and supporting local makers and local farmers. Like I hope people hear this and not only are inspired to come visit, but like, you know, maybe start a store themselves in
yeah,
their own town. Because it really feels like a moment where, you know, I keep hearing this phrase, late stage capitalism, being thrown around as if we're like at the end of capitalism, which kind of is a hopeful thought. Like it's become so disparate in terms of wealth and quality of life. Like so few people at the top have so much money and power, and the rest of us are kind of just down here being like, what is going on? And I think like the best way to not feel hopeless about that situation is to have young, not even young, just passionate people who want to do things differently, actually doing it, like actually
mm,
going out and creating a better place to shop, better products to eat, or just encouraging others to think differently about how they get the things that they bring into their homes and their bodies.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, I like the fancy things as well. So like it'll be nice to have that creative outlet as well. And you know, just giving people an experience when they come to our little shop that they won't forget, and they'll enjoy the smells, or even if they don't buy anything, just come for a cup of tea just to chat. That would be really nice. And I don't know our opening times and how, that kind of thing just yet, but I plan on being at the shop as much as possible so people can come and meet me and we can have conversations and um, add a bit of charm to the high street, which will be fun. And it's a new adventure. It may break me.
No, it will. I love it. I'm so excited for both of you, and it feels like just a wonderful project. And I
Mm,
can't wait to help encourage people to go as soon as it's open. But
thank you.
I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time together, Gaz. And what I really wanted to touch upon, because I kept thinking about it, it's a conversation I've been having very much with one of my best friends here in Maine who has three young kids, with Taylor, who works for me and has two young daughters. Like, interestingly, we've talked about parenthood and we've talked about community or lack thereof. And it's interesting because some of the conversations I've been having with my friends is just like how isolating parenthood can be, and how actually, like, we used to, speaking of like the old ways of doing things, like people used to have children that were like raised by tribes, right? Like mothers were not like sitting by themselves in a house all
Yeah.
alone with a baby all day. Like, it feels like the expectations for new parents now are to be able to handle this sort of isolation or this huge amount of stress and life change and just be fine. But I'm just so curious how you and Tiegan are finding it, building your own community, like if that
Mm,
resonates with you. Because I feel like, yeah, it's just a conversation I've been having a lot with my friends who have young children about this real lack of community at a time when we're talking about community so much online. But I think it's very hard for that to translate to new parents, right? Like, it's very hard
mm.
to be like, oh, go on like a mom's chat group or an Instagram
Yeah.
account for moms versus like somebody showing up and like handing you a hot meal.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like how you guys
Yeah.
are feeling about that.
Yeah. Well, there's that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And oh gosh, that is one thing that we wish we had around us. Unfortunately, living rural, my parents are over an hour away, which, actually doesn't sound that much in American terms, because I know you guys
It's
drive
like
like
down the
six
street.
hours to go to the supermarket. But to us, that's like quite far. And especially, my parents, they don't want to be necessarily on the road all day. It's tiring. It's hard. And Tegan's parents live a few hours away, hopefully moving down nearby soon. But, just having them around whenever they can be around. In fact, my mum's here now, just helping out is so important. And the demand it has, having a baby on mothers is, I just can't believe it. It's the hardest job I can imagine, really, for a mother. And watching Tegan though do it so naturally is super inspiring and beautiful. I think that, yes, um, social media necessary, joining a mother's chat thing may not be like as real or as authentic or authentic as that kind of thing in person. There's a load of amazing information actually on social media that we've learned, so it has its uses. The trouble is, it's like, we could plan to do something really social and try and meet up with people and our friends also who've just had a baby around the corner, but you plan it and then you may have a really awful sleep that night and just have no energy, no motivation to even cook breakfast. It is really, really straining. So yeah, I think in hindsight, um, well, especially if we have another baby in the future, we have to make sure that family is really close. And I have dreams in the future of living on the same land as close family, because I've realized how individualistic I've been throughout my lifestyle, and how actually that is just the norm nowadays, to be sort of, you get to 18 or however old and you just leave the family home and you're just sort of trying to survive in this big world on your own, and not having any finances behind you, but you just have to try and make it work. And really, I think many cultures around the world that, families stick together, and you sort of buy property together, or you share assets, and that would be maybe a possibility that we will look at doing to try and get land in the future is coming together with family. And that's what I think we must do before having another baby, if we were to have another one, but we'll see how that goes. And I guess a lot of the time, the sort of the thoughts of the dad aren't spoken about as much. And I think it should always be a secondary thought, because there's no comparison really to the demand that the mother has to go through in comparison to the dad, in terms of, the 9 months of pregnancy and everything that brings. And then the birth, which, was I won't go delve too deep. Actually, Tiegan actually put a birth story up on her Instagram recently, which I recommend reading if anyone's pregnant. It's inspiring, but she's quite candid in it, and that was quite cathartic for her actually. But in terms of dad's thoughts, and like for me, I feel, very overwhelmed a lot of the time having a newborn, just to try and make sure we can keep a roof over our heads. So it's like balancing looking after the home, keeping, food on the table, making food, cleaning the house, making sure Tegan's fed, then trying to work, trying to look after myself as well, doing the things that fill up my cup. It's very demanding on a guy. And I'm in a very fortunate position that I can work from home. Many dads, after 2 weeks here in the UK, have to go straight back to work. They get 2 weeks maternity leave. So it's tough. And I don't think society is set up like it used to be for us to sort of have kids in a way in which make sure we can be present and we can enjoy it. So it's been a big learning curve, and I take my hat off to all the parents doing it. I think it's very doom and gloom nowadays, and a lot of us are put off having children. But I think, the only way we can, I don't know, just I'm excited to pass on this new information that I'm learning. So I think it's good that we have kids. So if the more people can get into the sort of the real reasons and the sort of goodness of the world, and learn the sort of true qualities of life and pass that on to the next generation, then we're only going to hopefully have a better society in the future. So yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful, but
No, it's really like, I'm so glad you said that, Gaz, because I just had a friend tell me that like her husband actually got diagnosed with postpartum depression, and like he didn't have the
yeah,
baby, but like after
yeah,
like I think
I can
whether
understand it.
yeah, like whether
Mm,
it was just like because his life had changed so much, or like his partner wasn't available to him because she was
mm,
feeding the baby, like whatever, like so is, I think, really important. And like obviously as a woman, I appreciate what you're saying, that women have to be thought of, first and foremost as mothers, but like I don't think it helps to gloss over that this is equally
mm,
as big of a change for you as it is for Tegan,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. But I mean, it's so joyful at the same time. It's like it could be the hardest day, or you may not have had much sleep, or you could be really stressed, and then the Willow will laugh or smile for the first time, and it's just like it's an amazing thing. It's really beautiful, and it's teaching us so much. So things like, going back to like clothing, I wouldn't dare buy clothing that is made from polyester and put it on the baby. So
Yeah.
why should we wear it ourselves as adults? So, and also making use of like secondhand, Vinted and Depop, and buying clothes from there. And, it's taught me so much already, just 3 months or 3.5 months. It's exciting, teaching me lots, and it's a beautiful journey, and one that, I'm excited for the future more so than ever now. And it's made me really focus in on what it is that I see our future being. And it's that real simple living that I've talked to you previously about. It's living off the land. It's about being able to heat our home with trees that are on our land. It's about utilizing solar or spring or a well on our land to be able to just provide. I don't want to provide by going out and working all day and then not being around. I want to provide by making sure that all of our basic needs are met from the land that we live on, in turn saving money, in turn being present and being connected to nature at the same time. That will only make us feel good. So it's about learning the older ways and sort of breaking free from that cycle and that system as much as I can to be present.
And I think like that, honestly, the more I speak to parents, the more they say like, I wish I could be more present. That seems
Mm,
to be the overriding thing of like,
mm,
the modern parenting conundrum. So I think it's really nice that like you are actually thinking about how there's like putting down your phone and trying to be present. And then there's like thinking about your entire lifestyle and
yeah,
how it can help you be more like how you can actually live in a
yeah,
constant state of being present.
yeah, definitely. And that a lot of the time, the city is the entrapment. And certainly for me, when I left London and moved out here, I saved a lot of money just on my accommodation. So it could be taking that leap if you're able to move. And it's almost a lot of the time making sacrifices because you may be leaving your core group of friends or your routine, but then that what I've found, you find that in the new area that you're in. And I've talked about finding this new land, and maybe it be a case where I come together with family, but it also may be a case where to get that life, we may have to make the sacrifice of leaving Wales and moving abroad. If we have that, if we're able to do that, that is, because I just have to make the sacrifice because I know that is going to enable me to live a more present lifestyle. So sacrifice is what you have to do, and I've made a lot over my life, and I'm not scared of sacrifice. It always works out. So
Yeah. It's so funny. I read this quote the other day that said, some storms come to clear your path. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Like,
mm,
I think we really, as humans and modern humans, tend to shy away from any sort of like roughness, like big change, stormy, wet. Like, we don't love change. And I think leaning into that, like, every time I've done something big, moving to Paris when I was 18, starting
oh.
REV in London when I was too young to start a business for sure. Then, moving to Maine and totally changing our lives from London. Like, but every single time I've made a big move, it's been the best thing I ever did. So it's,
Yes,
it's really just to encourage people not to be scared of like the stormy weather or the big changes. It can sometimes lead to like the most beautiful outcomes.
yeah. I think it all comes from our almost programming in schools, and that sounds very conspiratory based. I can't even say the word now. But I feel like we're not encouraged to take risks. We're not encouraged to start business or to be self-sufficient. We're almost encouraged just to just get a job for someone else, and then you're in that rat race. And even though I took a risk as a young kid to then become a chef and chase after my dreams, I had to then leave the industry, and I got a normal job that meant that I was, working all the time to then take home a paycheck that went mainly on bills. And I was caught in this entrapment that just most people are in, and it's so suffocating. And thankfully, I found a path out of that. But a lot of the time, the path out of it is taking that risk, and we're so scared to leave that security of that, that sort of steady income job, or that comfortable environment of the hometown that we grew up in. A lot of people do ask me, is it you not like lonely living out in the country after leaving the city? And it's like, no, I felt more lonely, in cities when, you didn't know your neighbor, you didn't talk to your neighbor. Like nowadays, I can go to the bakery or the local town. People will say morning to me as I'm walking past them in the street. And there's a bit more of a community in a more rural setting. And hopefully people can be inspired to take more risks and feel the benefits of it after. And I'm sorry for people watching. It's got darker and darker here. It's like gets dark here at like 4 p.m. in
Oh my
Wales at
God,
the minute
it's
still. So
same. And also it's a good reminder that we are like basically out of time. And I, as we experienced at Bloom Farm, I could probably talk to you for like another 8 hours, but
yeah.
we'll spare everyone us going off into our respective like wild card thoughts. And I'll end with the same question I always ask as to finish the podcast. And I'm really curious, you're gardening, you're starting a new store, you're getting married, you just had a baby. There's a lot going on in your future. But what is the one thing that is making you feel the most hopeful about the future that we're going into?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, a lot has happened over the last few years. And it sounds like a lot of huge lifestyle changes, as you've just mentioned there. But actually, it's, as soon as I sort of found that ground in here, being connected with nature, curing that nature deficiency, Tiegan came along. And then, I realized that she's the one that I want to be with for the rest of my life. And I don't think I would have ever felt that way if I hadn't have had that sort of deficiency cured by being out in nature. And I know it sounds like really just like, just make believe, but I do feel like we're dealing with a deficiency of nature. Everything is set up in the modern world for us to be disconnected. And, it's really sad. And I think so many of the problems in the world could be sorted if we do spend a little bit more time connected to the natural surroundings. But what makes me feel hopeful for the future? I guess just the growing sort of movement of people wanting to sort of know where their food's coming from. I certainly feel like I'm seeing that. Maybe it's an echo chamber, but people want to know where their food's coming from. People want to know the ingredients of what, we're sort of shunning ultra processed foods, which is brilliant, and something that, I've been transitioning to, and making sure that, as I said, I'm trying to deindustrialize my food that I eat. And the future and excitement is looking back to the old ways. It's looking back to the plants around me, the original ways of doing things before industrialization, and trying to relearn those things and pass it on to the next generation. So that's what really gets me excited. What about you?
Oh, no one's ever asked me to say it.
No, I'm intrigued.
No one's ever like turned the mirror. I would say it's funny. I did a podcast yesterday with a woman actually in Alabama who you would love, who grew up in Mississippi and like subdivisions, and her husband bought a farm and now are running a clean beauty company that they have built whilst raising 5 children.
Wow.
And just keeping it independent. And I asked her that question and she was like, it's so funny. She almost said the same thing. She's like, there is just this growing movement of people who are starting to like wake up and say that like, I don't want to eat that way. I don't want to put that on my skin. She's like, it feels like for 10 years, we were all sort of far out hippies, like
Yes.
crunchy, like we were like outside the box. And she's like, I swear the tide is turning. This is becoming the thing people want. And like, I feel that too. Like when I first started REV, it's funny, we all kind of started out 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It feels like for, I would say like the last 8 years, I was like, is this resonating? Like, is anything ever going to change? Like, are we just going to be like the far out ones saying that this is like the way we should be living? And it feels like in the last few years, people are really starting to wake up and be like, no, I actually want this. I want clean skincare. I want clean air. I want clean food. I want community. I want connection. And I don't think it is an echo. I don't think you're in an echo chamber, Gaz. I think that really is starting. It's not everybody, but it's starting to become way more mainstream to want things to be different.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love that.
And it shouldn't be too much to ask to have these things to be as more pure. Unfortunately, it now seems like a privileged thing to want the most natural or the most pure of things, and it's such a shame that it's got that feel about it in a certain way. But if you go to sort of the less industrialized places around the world, they're using that. They know where their food's coming from. They know what the products they put on the skin. It's all just pure things that are made up with local ingredients. And I hope this movement continues, and I hope it becomes accessible for everyone, not just people tapped in. I just hope it just becomes the norm, and I think it will, because we all vote with money, and if we start buying more natural things, then brands will start to follow. And it's something that I've really been overthinking for the last few years, because we haven't really touched on it. And I will caveat, because I'm getting really dark in this image, but that I first took off on social media because I was sharing. It was at the cusp of sort of the sort of popularity of being vegan, and I made that change in my lifestyle because I wasn't feeling good in terms of the food I was eating. I felt sluggish, and I was eating a lot of animal protein and really bad sources of it too. And I made that change, and many years down the line now, even that movement, I realize, actually doesn't fit right with my new sort of lifestyle of trying to live as locally as possible in terms of the food, in terms of the clothing. I used to wear, I used to think that buying the plastic leather shoes were, great, it's vegan, there's no animals used, but awful product for the environment, for my skin, for animals indirectly. It probably harms more animals than if I were to get to wear secondhand leather, which I now do, and it definitely does. They're already out in the world, but at least that those secondhand leather goods would actually break down on my compost heap, not ruin it. If I were to wearing the plastic vegan version. So, I don't use that term anymore. I don't, unfortunately, that movement is very industrialized as well. Although I think it is an amazing way to sort of combat the abomination, which is factory farming. I think that, I've evolved to a point now where actually me wanting just to deindustrialize my lifestyle and my diet doesn't have a label. It doesn't, you can't call it vegan, because the black and white rule set of vegan doesn't fit to that, unfortunately. And that will upset a lot of people, people that have followed me, and that may make people sad that I don't call myself vegan anymore. But at the end of the day, you have to do what feels right for you. And flying foods in from all around the world, like quinoa, for example, which I'm trying to grow in my garden, no success yet, but quinoa seeds and nuts and tofu and these pre-packaged faux meats in plastic packaging made in a lab, that doesn't fit into that lifestyle anymore. And I wear the secondhand leather, and I have local people that have native bees around here, and they give me a pot of honey like once a year that I use medicinally. And I adopted chickens in the garden. Like, this doesn't make me vegan, so I just don't call myself that. And that's another thing that's very industrial. So I don't know why I've gone on to this caveat, but
No,
I
I'm
think
glad
it's
that
important. I need to put it out there because it's important. I need to try and be authentic, and not try and be authentic. I need to be authentic, and I do feel like I am that. And if this is on my mind, I have to share it. And a lot of the time, I think, oh, maybe I just don't need to overwhelm myself with this stress and maybe negativity. But I wouldn't be living my true self if I didn't say what I'm thinking. And I could be wrong. I could be, flip on this in 7 years' time. But you're always learning.
And I think also I would just encourage anyone, that I've said the word before, this idea of like things are nuanced, right? Like, I mean, I find that too. And I think the sustainability movement, whether that's like the veganism arm of it or whatever, it can be very judgmental to
Yeah.
people who aren't perfect or, like, I don't know, I have to get on an airplane to go interview Dan Buettner, but I actually think it's much more important for me to go have that conversation and bring it out into the world than to not travel, right? Like, it's like, and I think like, and I really, actually one of the things that I'm not hopeful for, but I hope is that we can start to treat one another with a little bit more grace and empathy for the journeys that we go on when we genuinely are trying our best to
Yeah,
be good people and live good lives and do well in the world. And like, if that means a former vegan is eating some local native honey, or somebody running a sustainable company has to get on an airplane to do business occasionally. Like, I just hope that we can get to a place where, like, that isn't something that's vilified. We look more to the good people are doing and less at like the bad. Like, if people want to
yeah,
point like to like an executive at like Coca-Cola, I'm all for it. I'm like, yeah, that person probably isn't great. Like, they deserve the heat, but like, I see so many wonderful people doing so many good things, getting so much flack, and
yeah,
I hope that we can become a little bit more conscious
yeah,
of that.
yeah. It is something that like it's been weighing on my mind heavily because now that I've got a baby in the world, putting myself in a group opens you up to so much. I got crossfire from the vegans say I'm not vegan enough, and non-vegans saying, you're silly for being vegan. Like it's like just so much unnecessary stuff, and I put myself there. I understand that, um, and there is this thing in the vegan movement. I've noticed that, and I must say, the majority of vegans that I've met over the years are just wanting to do their bit to be compassionate, and they're lovely, kind people. But unfortunately, in every group, there is extremists that will attack, and they're mad about the systems, they're mad about the world, and even myself, who did my well, I still do my absolute best to tread lightly and live a compassionate lifestyle, so that the plants, the animals, the people around me um, can live a more harmonious life. And, I'm not perfect, and I never will be perfect. And I'll always be a hypocrite because, I could be doing my absolute best to eat as locally as possible. But then I may be called to do some work overseas that, I feel is invaluable to spreading my message, but it requires me flying. Or it could be my well, not day to day, but my occasional transport of a car. You're never going to be perfect in this modern world, but it's about trying your best. And unfortunately, there's certain people out there that will never be enough and will criticize and criticize and criticize. And I'm over it now. Like I don't want that for my family to see, because my daughter will get to an age where she'll be able to go online and see everything they're saying about their dad. And if my family read some of the things that people say about me and I try and stop them, they would be absolutely heartbroken. I've got a thick skin now. I can kind of deal with it. But I think, it comes with the territory of putting yourself out there on social media. And the majority of reactions that I get are overwhelmingly good. But it's the certain few out there that try and ruin your parade, or try and pull you down, or there's an envy. There's like, oh, they're only doing it because they're this, or they're only doing it, they're so perfect, they can't be that perfect. It's like, it's just that crabs in a bucket mentality a lot of the time. And I think it's important for people that are trying to fight the good fight to not pull themselves or lower themselves to that. And it's so hard to do, but you just got to do your best. And I think me breaking free from labels and just trying to live my truth and do what I feel is right is very important for me right now. And be authentic and just deal with the consequence. If people aren't happy with it, they're not happy. I
Well, and I
feel like
also
I'm,
think you know what, Gaz, I truly believe that says a lot more about those people than it does you.
yeah,
And, I just hope that for anyone who is writing negative comments, or, feeling that, like, it would be great if everybody would just take a beat before they post or say something or comment, to just be like, is this like actually about Gaz, or is this about something like I'm feeling internally?
mm,
Like, why do I feel this animosity towards someone, that I have never met or have any
mm,
idea about? And I told you I have a friend here in Maine who's running for political office, which I mean, I'm like, are you insane? But
Yeah.
he's doing it, and it's for quite a high office. And it is, I've never experienced anything quite like it, knowing him since I was 10 years old. So I know him incredibly well. I know his wife incredibly well at this point too. And like just seeing what people say about them with no, like
Mm,
it's very, I have empathy for how your family would feel reading comments about someone that like you know personally, that like you
mm,
have dinner with, that you like whatever, and seeing how people think that they know them or think that they have the right to say something. The internet is a wild place, and
yeah.
it I think it's fair to say that we're all struggling with how we keep it a kind, productive, loving, inspirational place. And I think that falls on the shoulders of all of us, to be honest.
Yes.
Content
Yeah.
producers and content commenters and content consumers. Like, if anything, I just hope people take away from this portion of the podcast, like to have a little empathy and kindness.
Mm,
It's just it's the ultimate act of being human.
yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I think it's just, if you wouldn't say that a comment to someone's face, then why say it online? And just think that every time you're online and commenting. And at the end of the day, if you disagree with something, chances are you would have forgotten about it in a day or two. So it's like, we live in this such a fast-paced world that just things just come and go. And actually, I think a lot of the time, particularly with YouTube, people have a perception. I think maybe because of the likes of like Jake Paul and Mr. Beast, who just generate so many views and so much money, that they think everyone that shares on YouTube is like just this, just living on clouds in life of luxury. And it's as hard for me now to earn an income through what I do as it was when I had 0 subscribers on YouTube. And I'm 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 I just like putting the content out there to try and inspire and make people happy. And sometimes you look at the stuff that gets said and you just think, why am I doing this? I just stop it all and just try and live a peaceful life. And I can do that. And maybe I will do that. But I think I've learned too much now that I want to share and have a positive impact on the world and use these platforms to share that message. So I don't think I won't disappear too soon.
Please don't, because you
Yeah.
have really valuable things to say and to
Well, thank
share.
you.
And I mean, you got Jamie to eat plant-based food at a point when not eating plant-based food at all. And, and I've looked at you as someone, before we ever got to know each other, like watching your videos as you were learning how to garden. And I'm like, I was kind of trying to learn, you're a much better gardener
Mm,
than I am, but I was kind of like, yeah, it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. And I hope that people from this podcast have gotten a little more of a glimpse of the behind the scenes Gaz that I got
mm.
to know so well at Bloom Farm. And I have ounces and ounces, and no, ounces is small. I have so much respect for you and what you're
Thank you.
doing. And
Likewise.
and thank you for taking all of this time to speak to me
No
about things
worries.
that are so personal.
No, it's so nice to catch up. I think that's the great thing about social media is meeting like-minded people. And yeah, when we were at Bloom Farm, yourself and Jamie and everyone else around that dinner, we just got on like a house on fire. And it's really nice. And that's the beauty of the modern world, being able to speak to people from all corners of the globe. And there's definitely a mutual respect and understanding for people that grow food, because when Jamie and I sat in the car on the way to Bloom Farm, we were just yapping away, and it was just like so much in common, and that's really fun. So thank you for allowing me to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to the podcast coming out, and thank you to everyone that's listened.